Trust me, as little as you want to watch this one, I didn't want to make it, to be honest. This video sucks. This video is going to suck because the card sucks, and it's not going to really do anything for it, but we're going to break down every single fight regardless. I'm usually the last person to tell you that a card sucks for the UFC. By the way, if you don't know this, it's UFC Vegas 109. My full fight card predictions, Roman Dolidze versus Fluffy Hernandez. If you didn't know that there was a UFC card this weekend, it's because it sucks the UFC can't promote to save their lives, and this is as bad of an event as you can get. Why would they want to promote it? It's in the Apex. They don't really care. They're just shoving any single fight they can. There really are barely any competitive fights whatsoever on this card. And yeah, we're going to still break it down just a little bit. Not too long. I'm not going to make you guys watch a 20, 25, 30-minute long breakdown of a video that nobody really cares about. That nobody really cares about the fights going on. There are some decent ones. Don't get me wrong. We'll probably have some banger finishers and stuff like that, which is why I'm still going to watch literally every single fight in this card. But nonetheless, yeah, we're going to do a full fight card prediction on this, and I'm not really excited to watch it. I know you guys aren't excited to watch the predictions, let alone the card, but we move forward. At least last card, the Tyra versus Park card, I was looking at a bunch of fights on it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. I can't wait to watch this. But now we get to start off with Cody Brundage versus Eric Mechanico. By the way, another fight the UFC put on in the Apex on less than a week's notice, where there was really no fighter that pulled out. They just shoved this fight in for no reason. Both guys on really, really short notice. Congratulations, they both get paychecks. Brundage should probably win. Mechanico's not that good, but at the same time, neither is Brundage. I think Brundage is just a little bit better. And at the same time, Brundage is like slightly improving. Seems like his morale is a little bit higher up in the UFC right now. But that's, I mean, the fact that I'm breaking the fight down to morale and slight improvements is kind of letting you know enough of what kind of card this is looking like. But anyways, yeah, I think Brundage should probably win. I don't think Mechanico is really anything serious in the UFC or really belongs there, to be honest, whatsoever. I think Mechanico is probably going to lose. Brundage could probably finish him for the most part. That's where Brundage is going to find his equity. But he did kind of fight a slower fight against Mansour Abdul Malik last fight. But at the same time, not really the same threat you're getting out of Mechanico. So maybe he pushes the pace a little bit more and Brundage actually gets a good finish, although he's always very live to just get destroyed. But yeah, I think Brundage is going to win by knockout more than likely. Could also get like this random guillotine he usually gets every now and then. Now, moving on to Julia Stoliarenko versus Gabriela Fernandez. Now, Fernandez is a truck. She hits like a truck. She's an absolute beast. She is a physical specimen in this card, but she's actually a little bit smaller, shorter, at least, than Stoliarenko. If Stoliarenko gets her down, that's an armbar and fight's over. That's exactly what Stoliarenko's going to do. She's going to try to take her down with some body lock, try to pull guard down there, get her down to the ground however she can, and pull an armbar off. And when it gets down there, she has a fantastic armbar, but apart from that, she essentially has nothing in her game. In MMA, she's not the most durable. Fernandez hits like an absolute truck. Really good timing overall. We just watched her basically knock out and submit Kong Wong, who I actually view relatively highly in the UFC. And if we go look at Gabriela Fernandez's recent fights, I mean, in the UFC, who she has lost to. She's lost to Teresa Bleda, who's a relentless grappler, very, very young still, but still a relentless grappler, in which Fernandez actually did hurt in that fight, and Jasmine Jasavicius. That's who she's lost to, and that's not a bad loss at all for Jasmine Jasavicius. I mean, she's literally at the top of the division right now, and Jasmine's been she's been as great as she can be. And Jasmine's a fight away from the title, and Gabriela Fernandez is right there, competing still at the same time. Beating that Kong Wong win is actually very, very big overall for her career. She even beat Carly Judas in a split decision, which was a pretty competitive fight, but Carly Judas is legit as well. This is a very solid fighter. I think Fernandez is going to finish Julia. I don't think Julia Stoliarenko is going to be able to get her down. I really don't. She doesn't have the wrestling. I don't think she's as strong, or strong enough rather, to take down Fernandez, and I think Fernandez is going to knock out Stoliarenko. If not in round one, then in round two. I think it'll be relatively early. I don't think it's going to be Stoliarenko lasting that long if she doesn't get this armbar ASAP. Gilbert Urbina versus Uros Medic, another fight with two guys that are basically right outside the UFC, and we don't know why they're still getting fights. But, you know, we're in the Apex, so everybody gets another chance. Medic should knock out Urbina. His timing is a lot better overall. He's not good. He's definitely a lot bigger than Urbina is. He's much quicker overall in the feet, in my opinion. His timing's a bit better. Urbina's very, very hittable. Left hook is wide open for Urbina to get smacked by him. Medic has a decent one. Good right hand down the pipe as well at times. I think Medic is just a better overall fighter. Urbina can throw some flurries and try to get you down. Maybe he has some success in the grappling against Medic, where Medic literally cannot do a single thing. I see Medic hurting him. I see Medic being a much bigger fighter. He could hurt him to the body. He could hurt him up top. And I think Urbina's probably going to get knocked out by Medic in this fight. Moving on to Jocelyn Edwards versus Priscilla Cachoeira. Cachoeira cannot grapple to save her life. Honestly, as a striker, she's not good whatsoever. She has some big power. But Jocelyn Edwards has never been knocked out in her career. And she's she's just a better mixed martial artist. Wherever this fight's going to go, Jocelyn's going to have the success. She might be a little bit timid on the feet in this fight just because Priscilla does pack some power, and that's essentially her only opportunity to win this fight. But Edwards is probably going to be better in the clinch. She's going to be better pushing the clinch towards the cage. She's the better striker overall on the feet, at distance, and inside. It's just the power she has to worry about. But I would reckon she, if anything, has better durability overall than Cachoeira. She's more durable. That's what I'm seeing. I think Edwards has every bit of top time upside in this fight as well if she wants to grapple, and that would be basically it for this fight. I have Edwards by decision more than likely in this fight. She could finish Priscilla. She could submit her. I'd be surprised, to be honest, by the way that I anticipate the fight's going. But, yeah, I think Edwards should win this one, probably by decision. Moving on, Elijah Smith versus Toshiomi Kazama. I've now realized that I'm looking off to the right on the screen with my camera, right? My camera's over here. My camera's right here, right? The left screen is where I'm looking at OBS to where you could see my camera. And the right screen is where... Well, maybe I'm just an idiot. Yeah, I'm just an idiot. Never mind. Ignore everything I just said. Elijah Smith versus Toshiomi Kazama. Elijah Smith is one of my favorite prospects. No, he's my favorite prospect in the UFC to watch. He's 22 years old, or 23 right now, I don't know. And this guy's insane. He's a fantastic striker. He's improving in the grappling. He's looking a lot better overall in his career, and I actually love watching this kid fight. He's so fun. He's so high octane, and I legitimately think he's going to... I mean, it's a pretty big setup fight for him. I mean, Kazama's going to get knocked out. Kazama's out of the UFC after this. Elijah Smith gets a big setup fight after a very fun fight against Vince Morales. This is a step down in competition. He is 22. He's going to be improving exponentially. And this is going to be a guy to look out for in bantamweight. I promise you guys this is going to be a legit fighter. Maybe he'll get a loss here and there early on, but he is 22 years old. I expect him to lose sooner than later depending on the fights he's going to be getting. Similarly to like Atiba Gauthier, I think Gauthier is pending to lose to a grappler eventually at 185 pounds. I think Elijah Smith's pending to lose to some sort of grappler or high-level fighter, higher-ish level fighter or vet at 135 pounds. But this is a legit This is a legit fighter that's going to be a legit contender later on, and this is one of the best prospects in the UFC. It's a little bit early because he's so young and obviously hasn't really fought anybody apart from Morales yet, but he's going to knock out Kazama in this fight. Julius Walker, speaking of knockouts, is probably going to knock out Rafael Cerqueira because Cerqueira does not belong in the UFC, and Julius Walker at least showcased he can be competitive against the test of competence in Alonzo Menafield, basically, of like, do you have any sort of substance in your game? Let's put you against Alonzo Menafield, and if it's like, kind of competitive, or if you win, then, you're basically here. 37-year-old Alonzo Menafield, 38-year-old, however old he is right now, if you're competing against him, you're basically here. But at the same time, like, Julius Walker looked pretty bad in that fight, was gassing big time. Menafield also looked very sloppy. It was a very ugly fight, and Walker lost a split decision. It was close. It wasn't bad. Like, it was like, this is your UFC debut. It's Menafield. Here's Cerqueira. Knock him out. You're back in. We'll start putting you against somebody else that we think you can beat. You know what I mean? Maybe Johnny Walker. He's not related to Johnny Walker, I don't believe, right? I could be completely wrong, but I don't believe he is. And yeah, let's say Johnny Walker gets knocked out by Zhang Wenyang. Okay, Johnny Walker versus Julius Walker. Walker versus Walker. Put that in an Apex main event because the UFC sucks. Yeah, I think Julius Walker knocks out Cerqueira. Cerqueira is bad. Like, Cerqueira is bad. Like, what am I even gonna say about his game? He's not that good of a grappler. He's a poor striker. He's chinny, wide open to hit. He can swing. I mean, he's big and he can swing as any single light heavyweight in the UFC. But yeah, give me Julius Walker by knockout. Not much to break down there. On to the main card, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Eric Anders. This is pretty contingent upon what kind of Christian Leroy Duncan shows up. Whether or not he wants to play a game or if he wants to actually finish his opponent and fight and actually showcase, I'm just a lot better, younger, quicker, more explosive, bigger. And that's what he is in this fight. He's a lot bigger than Eric Anders. He's it shows 6'2" to 6'1". Feel like it's going to look a lot bigger in the octagon. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but this guy's a giant. And in the small cage, where Eric Anders isn't really the biggest threat on the feet, he's not enough of a grappler to kind of submit Leroy or Christian Duncan. And honestly, at the same time, I think Duncan is much better overall. What was I going to say? Duncan is... my brain's completely frozen with what I was going to say. Duncan's better. Duncan's just better. He's a better striker. He is a better finisher. He is going to be more explosive in this fight. He can move forward. The threat that Eric Anders offers is nowhere near enough to give Christian Leroy Duncan a second of thought about his game. And that's why I feel like Duncan, going into fights, if there's some sort of big threat, he is going to minimize his output, especially this being in a smaller cage. I feel like the UFC is kind of forcing his hand, basically, of like, there really isn't much to play around with. He's going to be right in front of you the whole time. You should be able to knock out Eric Anders and send him out of the UFC. And this is exactly what this fight is. Hopefully Duncan can get a decent fight in middleweight after this, where he's going to fight another boring decision. This card sucks. This card sucks. It should be a knockout. Could Duncan blow it 100%? But I just can't see Anders doing anything against him. I think Duncan is the better striker. Will stuff any sort of takedown Anders is going to put his way. Not like he sets him up well anyways. Duncan will see them every single inch of the way it comes. And yeah, give me Christian Leroy Duncan by knockout here. Moving on to Jean Matsumoto versus Miles Johns. It's a setup fight. It's a step down in competition for Matsumoto, who fought Rob Font on short notice. He's a better striker. He's a much better grappler than Johns. Johns is usually pretty decent overall takedown defense, but I think Matsumoto's a better grappler than most of the people that Johns has fought, and I think Matsumoto could put a pace on. He's going to be able to land some big shots up top. Johns is typically willing to fight a very slow fight on the back foot that usually leads to him losing a lot of minutes, losing a lot of situations, getting taken down at times, and losing a lot of exchanges in the grappling and the striking and all that. So I think Matsumoto he's a better overall prospect. I mean, obviously Johns isn't a prospect anymore. Matsumoto is a good overall prospect. I think he's a better overall striker. I think he's more explosive. I think he's going to be able to beat Miles Johns here at 135 pounds. I think he could finish him. It'd be a little bit tough, but I do think he could finish Miles Johns. I'm more so going to be reliant on Matsumoto probably winning by decision here. It's most likely, Johns is relatively durable. He can sustain a lot of these grappling situations, and yeah, I think he'll be fine in terms of being finished, but I think Matsumoto will win a pretty glaringly obvious decision here. Christian Rodriguez versus Andre Fili. You give me this like 2 years ago, I would have told you like, yeah, Andre Fili, I could very well see winning this fight. However, he basically put himself into a guillotine against Melky Costa. I believe I picked him against Melky Costa in that fight, and that was actually embarrassing. I mean, I've picked Melky Costa literally every other fight he's been in, and Andre Fili's the guy I pick against him. Fili didn't look horrible, but he looked pretty bad on the feet. It looked a lot slower. Christian Rodriguez isn't like the trickiest of styles for Fili on the feet, but Fili also looked a lot slower overall on the feet. His reaction time looked a lot slower. Didn't really look like he was dealing with much of the kicks well. Rodriguez not much of a kicker as Melky, but his hands are a little bit better, and Fili's very, very chinny. Rodriguez is much more durable than Fili is. Fili doesn't have some fantastic ground game that's going to make Rodriguez struggle. I think Rodriguez is better in the clinch. I just think Christian Rodriguez right now at this stage of their career is a better fighter with more durability. It's probably going to be better across these 3 rounds, and it kind of sucks for Fili because he's very talented. He just can't take a punch, and obviously he's 35 years old now, starting to hinder. His athletic ability is starting to go down. And that fight against Nathaniel Wood is a very good fight, too. He almost had it as well, man. Oh, my God. I don't even remind me on that. But, yeah. I would love Fili to win, but he's just not going to, is he? I think Christian Rodriguez is going to be able to manage, work the clinch, probably land the better strikes in this fight, and probably have the grappling success in this fight. Give me Christian Rodriguez by decision against Andre Fili. Could also knock him out. It might be Christian Rodriguez's first knockout win. Would it be his first knockout win? Probably his first knockout win in the UFC, if I'm not wrong. He might have one. He might have one already. It was the one after he fought JSP. Completely forgot what that one was. Let me go look at Christian Rodriguez. It's going to drive me insane. No, it was an Anaconda, yeah, against Joshua Weems. But apart from that, Rodriguez isn't really finished fights in general. Fili is very chinny, so it's possible, but it's more than likely going to be a decision for Christian Rodriguez in this fight, although he's still always going to be a fun fighter. Yasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill. This is a pressure style fight for Hill that she usually puts on a pressure style, but then at times, like, sometimes when she should the most, she doesn't. But if Hill's fighting with pressure, this might end up being like 20 minutes, and I might have already screwed you guys to watch one of the worst cards ever. A breakdown of this. Well, I'm not forcing anybody to watch it. I don't even know if any of you guys are going to be clicking on this, because who really cares about this card? Anyways, yeah, Lucindo's better, but she kind of does struggle a little bit with pace. She kind of does struggle a little bit with the cardio, and not cardio. The pace, the output, and the pressure that Angela Hill would typically give. If Hill's putting that on, it's a relatively closer fight, but Lucindo's a better grappler, and I think she could definitely have some top-time upside against Angela Hill. I also saw Mackenzie Dern like completely smoke Angela Hill on the feet. If Lucindo puts any sort of pressure on, Hill's gonna get beat badly. If Lucindo wants to play this like counter-striker game with an open stance, it's going to be a little bit closer with Hill's pressure. It's going to be a little bit closer with Hill trying to force the clinch and land some good clinch strikes, and she's a lot more active. She's going to be throwing the higher output. Lucindo has to fight a style fight similar to the one she fought against Haragui, but she needs to be able to go first a lot of these occasions. When you go first against Angela Hill, she kind of starts to slow down her output, starts to not necessarily love the way the fight's going because she kind of likes to set the pace herself, set that pressure, put that high pace on herself. But if you put that on her like Dern did, it's going to be a big difference. I think Lucindo's better than Dern. I think she's a better fighter overall. I think she's been a better overall prospect, and she's still very, very young in her career. I mean, isn't she like 22, 23 years old? Yasmin Lucindo is, something like that. So I think she's 23 years old right now. She's been fighting in the UFC since she was 20. So I think Lucindo should be able to beat Angela Hill here, and she could start climbing her way back up towards the top of the division. Well, she'll, start looking like a top contender. And she's growing into it, again, 23 years old, very, very solid and young. Solid start for a very young career in the UFC. Steve Erceg versus Ode Osbourne as the co-main event. We were supposed to have Steve Erceg versus Alex Perez. Alex Perez had pulled out. And then, the old tale of Alex Perez pulling out fights. Anyways, no, it probably sucks for him, honestly, the amount of times he's pulled out. Like, you got to feel for him. What was the other one? Steve Erceg versus Hyung-Sung Park. Then Miro Bezzi pulls out of a fight against Tatsuro Taira. Hyung-Sung Park pulls out of his short notice bout against Steve Erceg. Goes on to fight even shorter notice against Tatsuro Taira. Gets finished. Anyways, Ode Osbourne now stepping in for Steve Erceg. Or for Hyung-Sung Park. Originally Alex Perez to fight Steve Erceg. Where Ode Osbourne's going to get knocked out in this fight. Let's just put it how it is. He's either going to get knocked out or submitted. Steve Erceg's going to be able to finish him. Erceg's the better fighter. He's the much better fighter. Erceg is better all around. Can Ode Osbourne land something here and there? Sure. Is Erceg relatively hittable? Sure. Is Ode Osbourne Kai Kara France? Absolutely not. In no world. In no way. And I mean, there's literally no comparison. I think Erceg's just going to be perfectly fine here. I don't know what we're going to be worried about with Erceg in this fight. If he gets caught and Ode Osbourne beats him, one, it's huge for Ode Osbourne. Two, it's actually insanely embarrassing for Erceg with the run he's been on, where he competed very well against the champion. He competed, it was a pretty competitive fight against Moreno. Although Moreno, in my opinion, won 4 rounds, they were very, very, very close rounds. And then, what was the other one? Kai Kara France. He got knocked out. He ate dirt, is what it is. But, it would be a pretty bad downfall for Erceg, but he's good. He's a very solid overall fighter. He's still 28 years old, 29 years old or something like that. He should dispose of Ode Osbourne pretty well, especially when he's the one in the full camp where Osbourne isn't necessarily anywhere near that. He's 12 days notice as Osbourne or something similar to it. Yeah, it should be Steve Erceg by finish. I'm going to say by knockout, but he could definitely sub him. Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez as the main event. I could probably regret my decision on going Anthony Hernandez here. I feel like this is actually a pretty bad stylistic matchup for him. But the longer the fight goes, I'm always going to favor him. I'm just worried about his durability. On the feet, he doesn't really offer too much. He's going to be pressuring, but again, his setups for the feet aren't that great. His strikes aren't that great. He's not a great kickboxer. He's not a good boxer. He's just pressuring, and he's going to be putting a stupid amount of volume on you. And if Roman Dolidze is on the back foot, it's not going to look great for him. If he's on the front foot, it's a little bit better, but Dolidze's not that good on the feet. Dolidze's bad at MMA, to be honest. He's a little bit tricky on the ground. He's a little bit of a headache on the ground when it gets there. I do think he can give Fluffy trouble. I mean, we've seen Fluffy be reversed several times by other grapplers, by other situations, and be put in chokes by Edmund Shabazian, which is actually pretty embarrassing, to be honest, considering Shabazian's track history as a grappler and against grapplers. Edmund Shabazian almost having Anthony Hernandez in a really, really tight, I think it was a guillotine if I'm not wrong, something similar. Maybe even a ninja choke, I can't remember exactly. That was a bad look for Fluffy. He's looked a little bit better overall, but Brendan Allen reversed him several times. Brendan Allen, I think, had his back in round 1. Was probably trying to put in a choke, almost had it as well. Dolidze's a headache to deal with on the mat. He's bigger than Fluffy as well, so Fluffy's going to be dealing with the size disadvantage. He's going to be dealing with probably the power disadvantage. But I'm going to be I don't know why, honestly. I just can't see him lose. It's just one of these plot armor things that, I just refuse to see Roman Dolidze beating him, although Roman Dolidze is a stylistically... And Dolidze's an underdog. He's a pretty big underdog against Fluffy, which I think is wild. He probably has the finishing upside in this fight earlier on, and he probably hits a lot harder than Fluffy does. He's definitely a headache on the mat for Fluffy to deal with. I don't see Fluffy consistently getting him down and keeping him down and getting into positions, but if Fluffy can extend it to rounds 3, 4, and 5, I'm not saying Delice's cardio is bad. He's fought a 5-rounder before, I think on multiple occasions, if not at this point. I think against Imavov and against Marvin Vettori just recently. He did get cracked against Marvin Vettori in that fight, and Marvin Vettori doesn't hurt anybody, so that's where we have that conversation. Well, Vettori also dropped Cannonier. It's a weird situation we've been having middleweight. A lot of these weird fights, especially surrounding Vettori and Delice, both of which will fought each other twice. Hey, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. This is a weird fight. I think Fluffy should win. The longer the fight goes, the better it is for him. Again, not that Roman doesn't have the cardio, but Fluffy's pace, especially across 5 rounds, this is exactly what he's wanted. He gets to put this pace on across a 5-round fight to where a fighter has to think about it going 5 rounds, even if it doesn't. And with the pace that Fluffy keeps putting on him, if he can persist and he can actually hold it across 5 rounds, it's going to be very interesting to see how this fight goes. I think this is a much better fight than the odds showcase. I feel like this is going to be a very competitive, very good fight. I do have Fluffy Hernandez winning, and I do have Fluffy Hernandez probably winning by submission later on in the fight. If not submission, then probably by TKO. It's very hard to get rid of Roman. He is a very durable fighter. He does keep fighting, so you do have to put him out in a sense of like, okay, he can't defend himself anymore. You're putting on this ground and pound where he's exhausted, and he's on a back mount, which is, again, very difficult to do with Roman. He's actually very, very flexible, like really dexterous with his limbs, as you see against the Jack Hermanson fight. In the Jack Hermanson fight, it's pretty crazy. I think Fluffy wins. I think Fluffy wins with pace. I think Fluffy wins with decent grappling, and I think Fluffy's going to be able to put his game on Roman. But if not, like, he can get reversed. Roman can put him in a bad position. I mean, Fluffy's been very, very susceptible to being put in bad submissions as well, and Roman isn't really the guy you want to do that against, especially when he's that much bigger than you, and he's definitely going to be a physical force in this cage compared to Fluffy. So we'll see. I'm picking Fluffy. I could definitely see him losing. But those are my predictions on this card. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys care about this card at all, I don't. But I still will be watching every single fight because I am a mark. I am what I am here. I love the UFC. I suck. And I'm going to watch every single fight. I'm lame. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. I don't know why I said I love you, but I'll take it. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow's video. I'll post a video tomorrow. I should post a video tomorrow. I have an idea out for tomorrow. So appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.